Hi, it's Nancy with This Grow in the Garden. I hope you've enjoyed our focus on container gardening. Today we're going to go a little bit more out into the whole garden. Well, I started my little post right here, my little video on this butterfly, hoping it would open its wings up for you, but it does not seem to be cooperating with me. Well, what do you know? She didn't fly away, or he. That's amazing right there. But I wanted to say that while we have been focusing in on containers, the garden has been growing right along. The heat is still with us. We have missed the rains all the way around. But I have been able to keep the water going pretty well, and everything is just responding very well as far as it's leaping right on up there. The grasses are getting taller and opening up their heads even more. Everything is just really pretty full in the garden. I don't think I can get it for you, but I think there's a female oriole right up in that tree. I put her out an orange over here, but she has not came for it. I don't know why. The butterflies have found it, but she's just shying away for some reason, if that's what that is, and I do think it might be. I'm pretty sure it is. I saw a pair out here one day, and I've been hoping to see them ever since. But yeah, here's my little orange that I put out, and the butterflies are the only things that have found it. But the garden is definitely continuing to grow and change, and it's always so interesting to me. There's hardly a time when it's still. It just continues to go. Look at this. I noticed this yesterday. From the ground up, there's nothing, no leaf on it, so this is going to be well, they're called several different names. They're called surprise lilies, naked ladies. There's one more that I know, and there may be even more, and I can't think. Magic lily is the other name I've heard them called. So those three are the names I know them by, and I'm sure they're probably called different names, but they get that name because their foliage comes in the spring, and then it goes away, and then in late summer, early fall, you get this pretty little bloom, which will be open soon. You can tell it's beginning to think about it right now on this one little side. So anyway, that's the way the garden is growing today. I also had an amaryllis, I'm not exactly sure how you say that, but I had it to bloom, which looks a lot like the surprise lilies, but it does have the foliage along with on its stalk, along with the bright pretty bloom. I like how the tall phlox is kind of peeking out on either side of this rose that's climbing up this arch trellis, and It's just really pretty to me. I'm thinking about maybe I should put some over here on this side, right on this side, but I also noticed this little bloom right here. This is a clematis bloom. Let me get up there a little closer to it. So they're always a surprise to me when I get one after that first flourish in the spring. I don't get a whole lot, so each time I do get one, it's a nice surprise. But the tall phlox, look at that flower on that one. How big and how beautiful it is. They're looking good. And they do last quite a while. This is looking pretty bedraggled right now with the sprinkler having gone over it, but I got a still shot of this morning. Here is the picture from this morning. And this little pot did not make it on my container gardens episodes, which it should have. It very much deserves a place there. And this little pot, I clipped the celosia off, so hopefully it'll get fuller and bush out a little bit more back there. And this one I stuck down here, which probably will not make it, but this is what I wanted to show you. That tiny little piece right there, seedling right there coming up. I think that is a celosia that I thought I didn't have any of. I planted several. That's the only one I've seen. But hopefully it will grow. It's a very beautiful yellow and pink combination of celosia. I don't know if I told you that my zinnia seeds are coming up. So these are the pretty Magellan salmon pink zinnias, and they should be beautiful. I don't know if my marigolds still are coming up or not. They may be something. This is probably them right here. But then why did this all just stay empty right here? I don't know. But I'll need to plant some, try them again, or plant some yellow zinnias there. These pretty pink ones are doing good. Oh, look at this. I have a tomato. This might be a first. Usually my tomatoes get ripe at frost. We went out and tried to count our crepe myrtles. We almost didn't get this one because we had to look up. It's so tall. But there's 1, 2, 3, 4. and that's just in the back. And my crepe myrtles in the front are all very small, but they are pretty. This is a pretty purple one, and this is a also purple, but it's a softer, more lavender color. And the other one, I actually forgot what color it is, and it's so small that it's not blooming yet. But you can tell I love the crepe myrtles. They are also mentioned in the Bible as a sign of God's blessing. King James Version of the Bible, Isaiah 55, 6 through 13. Seek ye the Lord while he may be found. Call ye upon him while he is near. Let the wicked forsake his way, and the unrighteous man his thoughts. And let him return unto the Lord, and he will have mercy upon him, and to our God, for he will abundantly pardon. For as my thoughts are not your thoughts, neither are your ways my ways, saith the Lord. For as the heavens are higher than the earth, so are my ways higher than your ways, and my thoughts than your thoughts. For as the rain cometh down and the snow from heaven, and returneth not thither, but watereth the earth, and maketh it bring forth and bud, that it may give seed to the sower and bread to the eater, so shall my word be that goeth forth out of my mouth. It shall not return unto me void, but it shall accomplish that which I please, and it shall prosper in the thing whereunto I sent it. For ye shall go out with joy, and be led forth with peace. The mountains and the hills shall break forth before you into singing, and all the trees of the field shall clap their hands. Instead of the thorn shall come up the fir tree, and instead of the briar shall come up the myrtle tree. And it shall be to the Lord for a name, for an everlasting sign that shall not be cut off. Hi, it's Nancy with This Girl in the Garden. Yesterday when I was working in the garden, and I did have a very productive day getting little things done, but I thought what a reality check it would be if you could see me out there slogging around in the mud and muck, dragging a water hose around, and of course that water hose never goes where you want it to, and it gets all over your legs, all over your clothes, all over your hands. And not only did I have mud all over me and dirt all over me, I used Gorilla Glue to glue several things back, and I had a shop rag with me, but it didn't prevent me from getting Gorilla Glue on my hands, which means that I Gorilla Glued dirt underneath my fingernails and all over at least 3 of my fingers and a thumb, which also meant that it took several minutes of rubbing goof off, thank God for that product, on my hands to finally get them presentable for today. But anyway, that was only part of my day, and I still have several hoses that I need to fix. I have a pot that fell off. It got heavy, and it made it fall off of its where it was perched, or where it was hanging. But I did glue several things back together, little birdhouses that had gotten wet with the sprinkler, and then and that's another thing. One of those birdhouses came off because I was out there in some of my flip-flops, but not the ones that had the little grippers on them. These had no grippers, and so therefore I started to slip. And normally my knee would catch and hold me up, but no, I have a bad knee on my left side, and if I do it gingerly and work with it and make it lets me know when it's ready for me to put some weight on it. So, but I had no time to question and gingerly decide. And so therefore it showed me that I should have done that, because down I went with a big hard thud, and that's when I reached over and tried to grab the one little pole to hold myself from falling, which of course didn't work anyway, but it did knock my birdhouse over off of the post, so that was one of the things that had to be glued back on. While I was down there on the ground, I remembered that commercial that says, "I've fallen and I can't get up." And I thought, can I get up? Which luckily that was not a problem. I got up fine. But a little bit later, since, that made me feel old enough, I was down at Braum's getting just a few items, and I had a couple of items in my hand, and I was looking at some ice cream, which I love Braum's ice cream. But I was just looking, and a young man in his teens came up to me and asked if I needed any help holding those items while I looked, which was a very sweet thing to do, but I just stared at him thinking, is this a joke? Do I know this young man? Is one of my nephews here putting him up to this if I don't know him? And while I was contemplating all this, the young man just kind of turned slowly away, like, I don't know what's wrong with this lady, but she's not letting me help her, and so I'm leaving. But when I finally realized that was real, he really thought I needed help. I'm an old person, he's a young, healthy person, gonna help me. So I realized that was not the appropriate reaction for him to give to him. I mean, his reaction was fine, but so I did go over to him and explain that I thought maybe I knew him, and that I did think that was a very sweet thing for him to do. As one of the old people that bite off more than we can chew and are totally surprised that others don't know what we can do, I'm still thankful for help and encouragement. Sometimes it is what carries us through. Hi, it's Nancy with This Girl in the Garden. The garden is basically looking pretty, but I am feeling wilted today. This has been a hard week for me. I've had several other things come along to do that I haven't been able to do because of the garden, but I have made a commitment, and I'm going to keep my commitment to the garden until I decide otherwise. I feel like a lot of people think, well, the garden is just not that important, not when it comes to a great-grandbaby being born or just really anything else. But it is, to me, it is something that I've always wanted to do, and something that basically I enjoy doing. But no matter how much you enjoy something, it does become work when you do it on a constant basis. I always go back to it being like a 2-year-old. Who could resist a 2-year-old? And yet, for all their energy, and they're like a little sponge soaking up all kinds of information and using it quite well back at you. But at the same time, they can wear you out, because most of the time the adults do not have all that energy, and then that little one can just fall right asleep, and that adult has to get done what they need to do while that little one's asleep. So the garden is kind of like that. It's like would this garden still be alive if I didn't come out here and move the water over every 30 minutes to an hour, sometimes 2 hours. I'll leave it in a spot, but in the front I almost always change within 30 minutes, and then after that, which takes probably around 5 hours, and then I still have to come out and go all the way around it where the sprinklers didn't reach, up against the fences and behind the bushes and all the pots. And if you just step outside to do a small task, or even just to get in your vehicle to go somewhere in this 100-degree heat, it begins to feel oppressive, like just immediately. So after you've been out here changing the water over off and on all day long, and then usually it's a little bit cooler in the evening when I do the hand watering, but it's not that much cooler, and it's still hot and tiring, and you're dirty all day long, which is a good thing, that at least not the dirty part but the wet part, because you need to be a little wet to be able to be out here. But that leaves you no energy to go do something in the evening. Not that I consider myself an evening person that would want to do anything. My idea of a wonderful evening is take an early bath and curl up in my pajamas and watch a good romance movie or a true life story. But still, I don't even get to do that. Usually when I go in, it's already dark and I'm just wore totally out. I'm not complaining, but I am having a little bit of a struggle with other people thinking, well, you could water early in the morning, get that over with, and then I guess I'm having a little bit of a struggle with other people running my life, which it shouldn't be important to me, but honestly, there are some people in my life that are very important to me, and most of the ones that I dealt with this week are very important to me, so it makes me feel bad to let them down. But on the other hand, I do know that they have to also realize that this is my calling. I consider it my calling of the Lord to do this. And I'm grateful to get to do it. I've always wanted to be able to. So if He gives me all this, which He has, then I think I should be responsible for taking care of it. Yesterday I got out in the evening, but it was still really hot, and trimmed back a bunch of the celosia that is just totally taking over. I've got to clear that out too and put something there that doesn't just take over and yet fills out. Look at this pretty little Plectranthus is blooming. There's that pretty light purple I was telling you about. I think I prefer the dark purple, but this is very pretty too. I've noticed there's a little plant in here that's died out, and I'll need to replace that. I think a pretty bright profusion zinnia would work wonderfully there if I would just get around and get that done. It's so hard to get everything done that needs to be done. Look at this pretty little moss, purslane moss. I couldn't think of the word purslane, but it's in the sun there where you maybe can't see it as well in the picture, but it's very pretty. This is some of the area where I trimmed back celosia. I started to just pull it up, but actually it's better to have something growing there, because if a plant is not growing there, a weed will be growing there. I actually found a few weeds that I had missed hidden in all this stuff as I clipped it back, and there is a lot to clip back. but I mostly just clipped back along my pathway because it was getting so full and laying over with the sprinkler being run on it. And it just really needed, there's lots of spaces all along the pathway that needed to be cut back so I could walk through it better, and it just makes it look so much neater too. Looks like it's been to the beauty shop. Zinnias are beginning to bloom here and there. I always love the zinnias. They're a flower that my daddy has planted for his girls, and they're just loved by butterflies and hummingbirds, and just lots of pretty bright colors and shapes and heights. Didn't I tell you that butterflies love them? Look at that pretty, is that a swallowtail? I'm not sure. I think it was. Notice my little Henry Eilers daisy is beginning to bloom. The little plants that are in pots during July and August especially, sometimes even earlier and later, just struggle through. Some of them make it, some of them don't. I probably will have to go ahead and put something else in this in the fall, but it may live. I'll want to fill this one out a little more when it gets a little cooler. You can probably tell I tried. Right down in the center that was a beautiful coleus and then a celosia. I had to cut the celosia off because it was just getting too tall and making more seeds than I wanted to deal with next year. And then the little coleus, just, I don't know if it's going to make it. If it does, it's not going to show up pretty until the fall anyway. What I just pulled up, this grass was growing right up in this little daylily right down here, so that its little leaves were totally hidden until it made a seed head. I've got to read that book, What Plants Know, one of these days, if I ever should get the time, because sometimes I think they just seem like they actually know to sneak in somewhere where you won't suspect them so they can get to stay there. Oh, and I have something new for the garden, these little bluebirds. Get them in focus for you a little bit. And there's one more of them, and then I have 3 redbirds or cardinals I need to put somewhere. This poor little hibiscus was wilted down last night by the time I got to it. After I did all my trimming of the celosia out of the pathway, it was just totally wilted, but thank God it's back to looking perfect. Hi, it's Nancy with A Scroll in the Garden. Welcome back to part 2 of Where Was I? I was in the garden. My little plants in the front are doing good. Oh, look at this. Is a bacopa right here, this pretty little pink. I do love bacopas and calabachoas. I'm trying to figure out the best way to grow them so I can have them in the garden like more prolifically. These are beautiful, but you cannot leave them without water one day. They will just totally wilt. By the time they get water, they're usually just desperately needing it. You can hear the sprinkler. I've got it going around here right now, and I'll be moving that soon, and I'll do that all day long. And then I'll water this evening, and that's how my day goes every day, and it has to go that way every day if I'm going to keep it alive. And that doesn't even necessarily mean I'm looking well, although right now this is looking well. But sometimes it's just not even enough to do that. Sometimes, and usually I'm happy if I can just keep it alive until fall. When the fall weather comes on and it gets cooler, they will perk up and they will just tell you how much they love it. If we don't get an early frost like we did last year, since I've been gardening, I really think that's the earliest that we've ever had a frost. Most usually do get at least some time to just enjoy the garden in the fall. Even actually, I enjoy it more in the fall than I do in the spring, although spring is just totally my favorite season. But that springtime is so busy with the garden. If you get all that cleaned out and get it planted before the heat. This is a bougainvillea I was looking at here. I thought I might saw a bloom there, and actually that may be a little bit of a bloom there, but I think it's just too hot for it to bloom. But this fall I think they will. So if you can just get it to live through in the fall, if we can just have a little bit of I hope we have a lot of pretty fall weather before the frost sets in, where we can just totally enjoy it and they can totally take off and go. Had to wait till the sprinkler got out of the way a bit, but here's a little plant right here, this impatient, that is just totally needing water. And then this little fall plant up here in the same pot is already beginning to shine for the fall. This is a Mexican flame vine. I put some little clippings earlier the last time we got some rains, which we have not got much of this spring or summer, but we did have a little, and it got a little bit cooler. I put these little clippings in. I did not think they would probably make it, but you can tell that they have. They've got their roots down and actually looking very good. There's another one right over there, partially hidden. This was another little pot that I put a coleus clipping in, and it's doing well. It's coming out. It's coming into its own now. And I put it in there because my hostas almost totally died out. But right now they're looking like they're trying to come out of it. I've been putting coffee and coffee grounds on it. I hope that works. Something worked for this little one right beside it because it's trying to come back too, and it's doing well. I hope this one will come back too. I hate to lose my hostas. Even if they don't look good this season, if they live, they'll have a chance to look good next year. I had planted a little blue acherantum in this pot right here, and I think it had disappeared, but look, it's coming back. It's coming out, and it looks really good right there. Right behind it there is a little pot of something that's dying. I was trying to save that for my friend at church, Ruby. I'm going to get her a start of a butterfly plant. I don't know if that one's going to be it. I tried once before and it just totally didn't make it, but I'll get it going. It may have to be in the fall before I do. And then this little pot is another project for a friend, that it's got a dinner plate dahlia and That's a morning glory. It's one of the beautiful deep purple, I call it navy blue, trimmed in white. And then there is also one of the Mexican flame vines in that. Wouldn't that be pretty if they bloomed at the same time, which they should do later on in the fall, and you have that bright navy blue and that bright orange playing off of each other. And I don't know what color the dinner plate dahlia is. She wanted the Kevin Floodlight yellow, and I did save her one, but it ended up rotting, and so I didn't put that one in there. I just went out and dug up one of mine and put in there, so I have no idea until it blooms what color it will be, but I hope it will all bloom and be very pretty for her. That's another thing I haven't gotten to take to her. Haven't had the time away from the garden to do it. But one day we'll get our rains, and I'll get some of that other stuff taken care of, and I'm sure I'll feel better about it once I get it done. But I'm also sure that I'll feel better if I don't lose my garden in the process of doing some other things. I don't know if you can see on this, but all of our, or most of our little caterpillars went away, and then here we are, some brand new little baby ones just starting out on this. Let's see if I can get them. I think when I try to go in closer, I actually just end up blurring it out, but I hope you can see those little caterpillars on that. And there are still a few of the bigger ones. There's one right there. There's one not quite as big, but still a good size compared to those other little ones. There's a pretty good showing of my deal. And deal is not only a butterfly host plant, it smells wonderful in the garden, and it's pretty. It's just plain pretty to see these big old umbrels of yellow in the garden. Is another one that's just barely hanging on, but if I can get it to live this fall, when we get to that point where you don't have to water every day, but you can maybe water every other day, and if it's still alive, it will fill out and be so pretty. My little garden decor is all but covered up. Things are doing well in this little pot. And I have found that both the Bacopa and Calabrachoa, this is a double Calabrachoa here, one of my favorite plants, those two are. But this little pot, it loves the cocoa liner pots because they drain. It loves it to be constantly drained, and yet it loves to be consistently wet. So it's hard to find, but this is the best planter I found, one that's deep enough, a cocoa liner pot with a depth that will allow you to not only drain well, but also to hold the water in it until you can get it watered again, so that it will be consistently watered. And I didn't find as many gazanias as I had hoped this spring. I had hoped to find them in like a 6-pack because I love them on the cocoa liner, the outside part of the cocoa liner pot. This poor little pot is getting dilapidated, and I put a little coleus there that looks like it's not going to make it, but honestly, if it puts a root in, you can trim that other back and it will just start back and just be beautiful in the fall. But again, it may not make it too. As you can tell, it's very much struggling. But these beautiful little bright gazanias are the perfect thing to put on the outside along the bottom parts or the edge parts of your cocoa liner pots. They're just the perfect size for it. and bright and pretty. You can't hardly miss them. The ones I found mostly this year were the yellow ones, but there's a pretty white one with a little bit of pink in the center that I love. But I totally understand why no one or not many people would want to do this, and especially in Oklahoma or any other place where it gets this hot. But then again, I like to think that God knew that I would do it, and that's why He laid it on my heart. And I'm definitely wanting to keep doing it, because to me it is worth it. Sometimes it doesn't feel like it. Sometimes it's so stressful and I lose out on things I wanted to do. But when the fall comes, or the spring, when you get everything in, the weather's still pretty, and you get to just sit out in this beauty and the weather be beautiful, there's just nothing like it.